Welcome to Crimepedia podcast. This week I am your host. I'm Cherry, and with me, as always, is my true crime BFF, the lovely Morgan.
Hello, Cherry. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you. Hopefully you guys have had a good week. Thank you for joining us. We've got a very different case for you today. Usually my cases are set back in like 1940 something, and they're usually really old cold cases. But this week I've got a very, very up-to-date case for you, which is not like me at all. So hopefully it'll be an interesting case for you that you've probably, if you're in England, you've probably been hearing it all over the news this week. And if you're not, then I'm going to go back and take you back to the original start of the case. So maybe then you can have a listen and see what's going on here at the minute.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we're talking of stuff that's happening here. We said we were going to add a news item from each week into our show. This week, detectives from Avon and Somerset Police have re-released footage of a man that they want to identify as part of an inquiry. A year ago, a man seen wearing a dark jacket, tracksuit bottoms and a white hat spoke to a man in Broadmead in Bristol, and this man then attacked and raped him near the church in the Castle Park between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m.
What?
Yeah, 16th of October 2021 this was, in broad daylight between 6 and 7 in the morning. I mean, it's not broad daylight because it would be dark, like, you know, it's early morning in October.
Yeah.
But still, the suspect is described as black or mixed race, about 5'8" to 5'10", in his 20s or 30s, and is slim. He's spoken in quite a deep voice. The victim spoke about their attack and said, "A year ago today, I was attacked and raped in Castle Park. Having only moved to the city a few weeks prior, it's impossible to put into words the effect this has had on me. I'm still struggling to come to terms with what happened." So if anyone has any information at all, please come forward. We've got Detective Inspector Andrew Branch, who was talking to the media, saying that this was an absolutely appalling crime, and they are desperate to find the perpetrator so that the victim can get a bit of justice, because it's a horrific crime to happen to somebody.
Oh, absolutely. That's
So
horrible.
fingers crossed. So if you are in that area, if you're in the Bristol area and you're listening, or you've been in the Bristol area at that time, have a look at the Avon and Somerset Police website. All the information is on there. If you can help at all. So it's somebody in Broadmead in Bristol between 6 and 7 a.m. on the 16th of October 2021. And they're looking for a mixed race or black guy wearing a dark jacket, tracksuit bottoms and a white hat.
So it was last year and
yeah.
Still
hideous,
unsolved.
Absolutely hideous. That guy is still walking around, you know, still free, and that poor person is having to, you know, live that worried that person's still out there. It's horrible.
Yeah, that was very bad. It's really horrible.
Yeah. So this week's case is something slightly different. This happened in 2019, so it's a very current case for me, but we have just this week started to have more information on this case come out in our news. And this was one that was on the list. It's been suggested to me, I think from one of our listeners at CrimeCon, I believe, somebody, CrimeCon London, they suggested this and said, have you covered it? There's not a lot about it. And I said, no, we haven't, but I think I will do this one because it would be a good one to speak to Morgan about and get his ideas on what he think happened. And I haven't got around to doing this one yet. And then with this week's news, I thought actually now would be a really good time to do it. So this week's case is the case of finding Leah Croucher. Leah Croucher left her home to travel to work. Her parents had already left to go to their jobs, and the journey would usually take Leah around 30 minutes. On the journey, various witnesses report seeing Leah. Then she vanished into thin air. There were no further sightings of Leah, and her phone has not been on again since that time. This is Crimepedia, and this is Finding Leah Croucher. Okay, Morgan. So Leah Croucher was born on the 14th of August in 1999 in Milton Keynes. She lived in a house on Quantock Crescent in Emerson Valley. She worked as an admin assistant at a debt collection agency in Knoll Hill, which is, according to Google, about 2 miles away from her home. So it's about a 30-minute walk or around 6 minutes in a car. So not very far from home. She was around 5'2", slim girl with brown hair just coming down below her shoulders. She lived with her parents, Claire and John, had a sister called Jade, and a half-brother called Hayden. Now, Claire is her mum, and she describes her as a shy girl when you first meet her. But then when you got to know her, she would become more confident. She had a really good sense of humour, a very happy girl. Her dad describes her as really generous. And a lot of time with her dad, she was a martial arts champion, and she used to spend a lot of her time practicing martial arts with her dad. So she's quite a fit girl. And her and her dad had a shared passion for martial arts. Now, according to the BBC Crime Watch live programme, which aired after she disappeared, it said that on the 14th of February 2019, after work, she left home and went out telling her parents that she was off to meet her friends. Now, it appears that she never actually met any of her friends. And there's an hour or so of that evening that's completely unaccounted for. Nobody knows where she was, where she went. She told her parents she was going out to meet her friends. Her friends don't know anything about it. So she returned back home at about 7:15 in the evening and went off up to bed. I don't know what her attitude was at this time. I don't know if she was upset when she came home. Her mum just said she came home around 7:15 and went up to bed. I don't know if that was unusual for her or not. It's quite early, but then maybe it's not unheard of. So the next morning at around 7:30, Leah's parents left for work. And this is the 15th of February. Leah left home at around 8 o'clock. She was due to start work at 9, so it gave her plenty of time to get to work. She was wearing a black coat, skinny black jeans, and Converse high tops. She was carrying a small black rucksack and was wearing a very distinctive Stuart B. Taekwondo grey hoodie. Now, these hoodies are quite rare and they were only given to a few people. So if anybody had seen this hoodie, it's something that only a few people would have. So it's a very, very important piece of evidence if anybody came across it. She would make her way along a road called Buzzacott Lane. And this is in Thurston, where she was seen on CCTV at 8:16 a.m. A witness remembers seeing someone matching her description nearby at 8:20. The exact location is not clear, but we know that a witness did see her around that area. Her mobile phone was reported to have left its network at 8:34 a.m. And her mobile phone never rejoined a network. So it's never rejoined since.
Okay.
3 separate witnesses remember seeing someone matching her description between 9:30 and 11:15 that morning. And they say that she was walking near Thurston Lake. Now, witnesses say that she looked very upset. She was crying whilst talking on the phone. Now, as we know, her phone had left the network at 8:30, just after 8:30 that morning, and never rejoined the network. So if she was on the telephone, she's obviously using a different telephone to the one that she's got, her own.
And how confident are we that this sighting was actually her?
There's three separate witnesses on 3 separate occasions that remember seeing her in that area.
Okay.
So I would think that's quite a coincidence if it's untrue. Now, Leah didn't make it to work that morning. She was reported missing by her parents later that evening when she didn't return home from work because nobody had seen her all day. On the 18th of February, police began searching Thurston Lake because of those people that had said that they had seen someone matching a description there. The police also later searched Blue Lagoon Local National Nature Reserve in Water Eaton. Now, this is because somebody reported seeing a grey hoodie in that area, and police obviously straight away thought that could be Leah's because it was so distinctive. They thought maybe somebody had dumped it or she had left it somewhere. Nothing was actually found of Leah's at all. And Thames Valley Police said that its officers had visited more than 4,000 homes and had deployed special search teams, drones, helicopters. They'd used dive units, specialist teams that had gone in across the lakes in Milton Keynes, and nothing was recovered at all of anything that could be Leah's. So on the 22nd of February 2019, Leah's parents made their first appeal to the public for help in finding Leah. Now, this is it's horrible. It's a very emotional, like, like all appeals are. Whenever you've got parents that go on the television, your heart breaks for them, because as a parent, you know how much your children mean to you, and to not know where your child is must just be absolutely horrific. And then to have to go and sit on television and plead for somebody to give you information as to where your child is a horrible thing to have to go through. So, and also, that everything you're doing is being scrutinized, because you know what like. I mean, everything you do, you say if you don't cry enough, then it's suspicious. If you cry too much, then it's fake. So they're under a lot of pressure, her parents, as well as, being really worried about where she is. So they hoped that somebody was going to come forward. They said that her disappearance was very, very highly unusual, and that they were absolutely beside themselves with worry. On the 8th of March, police issued pictures of Leah on CCTV the day before. They showed pictures of her arriving at work the day before she disappeared. So it showed her in similar-ish clothing. So they thinking that maybe this would trigger someone's memory, having seen her, and then because it was literally the day before. But unfortunately, nothing. The police had a team of, I think it was about 50 or so officers looking through thousands and thousands of CCTV imagery, people's house stuff that they had come forward and given, and there's nothing other than that one in Buzzacott Lane. There's nothing that they can find her on. So on the 16th of April, we jump to April now, and police have released information from these witnesses at Thurston Lake, trying to trigger somebody's memory. There was a photographer there, I think, who had taken photos of family up there, and they found this person and was trying to ask, did you see anything? Did you see anybody matching Leah's description? And they tried to get hold of as many people as they could that were in that area on that day. Nothing. Still nothing. Mm-hmm. So this brings us to the 16th of November 2019. Still no leads on Leah's case. Leah's half-brother Hayden sadly passed away after taking his own life at home. His mum said that he had a long history of mental health problems, and Leah's disappearance had basically just exacerbated them, and he just couldn't cope anymore. So we've got double tragedy for Leah's dad. He's lost his daughter, can't find his daughter, now has lost his son to suicide. So the poor family, it just seems to be one thing after another for them. And, I mean, it's horrible. It must have been really hard if you have got a history of mental health issues to then have something as significant as that happen in your life, that your sister's gone missing. And it's just sort of tipped him over the edge. And there's a huge, if you do see it, there's a huge article. There's a lot of articles about how the mental health system failed him and how they failed to help him following such a huge issue in his life, something that had happened that would surely give most people huge anxiety and upset. And the fact that he didn't get the care and didn't get the help that he needed. And unfortunately, it ended in him taking his own life.
That's really sad.
It's really sad.
That's really sad.
Investigations were still underway. A year passes soon, and Leah's parents then issue another appeal on the anniversary of her disappearance. There had been a £10,000 reward for information on Leah's case, and by the 23rd of March 2021, this had doubled to £20,000, but there was still no information coming forward from the public. Still nothing until the third anniversary of Leah's death, and police reveal it was a very blurry picture of someone they believed to be Leah that was taken at Thurston Lake on the day she disappeared. And I believe, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this was taken by somebody who was up at Thurston Lake, and they happened to catch this image of this girl in the background. It's very blurry, and I don't honestly think you can say 100% or not that it's her, but it's somebody who's similar. You could say similarly looks like her. They then start releasing more photos of that people have taken in hope that maybe someone would come forward. There still is nothing. We've got nothing. And then this brings us to this past week, when we now began seeing Leah once again in our news. So on Monday this week at about 6:30, Thames Valley Police were contacted with information about a property in Locksbeer Drive. Now, if you look at the map from where Leah was going to work from her home, you can see that she goes, her work is actually in a place called Knoll Hill. and she lived in
Okay.
Quantock Crescent in Emerson Valley. And you would see it sort of if you look on Google Maps and you put this in Quantock Crescent to Knoll Hill, it will take you along the main roads as Google Maps usually does, the most direct route or the quickest route. But she was obviously seen, we know, in Buzzacott Lane, which is off of the main road. It's a small, like little. It's kind of like not really cul-de-sacs, but there are little cul-de-sacs in there, and it's a little sort of. There's a lane and a crescent and a little housing area.
It's just it's a side road, but
Yeah.
okay. I was going to ask. So she walks to work, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is what I don't understand about this sighting on Buzzacott Lane is if she was actually on, if it was actually on Buzzacott Lane, there's
Mhm.
not really a reason for her to be there if she's walking to work, right? Because it's a side street
Yeah.
and it pretty much dead ends.
Yeah. I mean, it isn't an area when you look at it. It isn't an area that's sort of on the way or a quick kind of cut through. It
Mhm.
could be because I've looked over this and over this and over this to try and see why she would be in that area at the time. It it could be that it was quicker. It would be a lot quicker to walk straight across, up through where the lakes are, past the lake, and straight
Through
across.
the walkways, through the park, because it's like a
Yeah,
big park area that,
yeah,
that kind of leads up to the lake,
yeah,
First and Lake.
yeah.
So I would imagine if it were me, I'd be taking those paths through
Mm,
the park
mm.
and then around the lake.
Which is what I
Uh,
wondered, if is that what she's done? Is it that, because on the map you can't really see in depth. There could be little walkways that she might have cut through to get up to, like you say, up to where the park is. It could have been that she walked that way instead of going right the way through the park. It might have been quicker just to nip through the housing estates.
maybe. Well, here's my other question. So the possible photograph of her at First and Lake,
Hmm.
do we know like where at the lake that would have been?
No, not yet. We haven't got. All we know is that she was seen at Furston Lake, and that she appeared to be upset and distressed and crying and on her phone. That's all we know. So they haven't. I don't think the police have actually released where on Furston Lake she was.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a big. Well, for us, I know for you guys that isn't a big lake. It's quite a small lake for you guys, but for us, it's quite a big lake. It's quite a big area.
No, it is. It's a good sized lake. I
Mm.
mean, yeah.
So I
It's
mean,
just
her parents
really
would probably
confusing.
know. Her parents would probably know which way. Like you said, I would have thought she would have gone. It is possible that she walked from where she is to Fulmer Street, straight up where Buzzacott Lane is, and then walked up through that park where you've got Teletubby Hill, and then right up through the children's playground, up to the sports ground, around Furston Lake, across the main road, and up to work. So it could be that that's the way she walked. I would have thought that would be good,
Yeah.
but then I don't know the local area, so I don't know if it's safe to walk through there. She might have been told that she's not allowed to walk through the park on her own. You know.
There is like a walkway in
Mm,
between some of the houses, some of the
that's right.
streets.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming maybe she took that and then
Mm,
she got to Buzzacott Lane.
yeah.
Because where does that? I'm curious. Would that lead to what was the name of the street where?
It doesn't. It doesn't lead. It doesn't lead to. I think it's just like a. It's like a small cul-de-sac. I mean, really, it's Buzzacott Lane goes on to Calverley Crescent, and then that goes off. That's where you could go off up into Teletubby Hill and up towards the park and up towards the lake. So
Because it looks like the path continues past Buttercott Lane,
yeah, into
and
like where
then
the
it goes
Pilates place
to
is.
yeah
Mm.
up to Teletubby Hill,
Yeah,
and then that's right next to Lockspear Drive,
yeah.
right? And you said there was a house on Lockspear Drive that police got a call about. Is that what you said?
There is, yeah, there is. And I'll tell you about that. I think she's gone she's gone up Fulmer Street, and then I think she's come across out to where Cloucham Crescent is. Sorry, Cloucham Close, and then Calverley Crescent. I think she's come up through there to Buzzacott Lane, and then she's cut off up to the. I think that's what she's done. She's cut straight up onto the top, and that's what it doesn't tell us where on Buzzacott Lane she was seen. But Buzzacott Lane's not very big. It's not a huge stretch of street.
No, it's not.
So I think she's gone along Buzzacott Lane and then onto Calverley Crescent onto the big road. I think maybe that's where she was heading. It makes sense to go that way to up to her where her work is. So she just cut, rather than go right the way up the top and then all the way along the main road, I think she's cut through the housing estate to go to work. And that's what it looks like from what I can see. So on Monday, the police got this call from a member of the public about a property in Locksbeer Drive. So this is a little way up above Buzzercott Lane, where she was last seen on CCTV. This is less than half a mile away from her house. They began to search the property, and on Wednesday this week revealed that, unfortunately, unidentified human remains had been found in the loft of this house. Not only that, but there were items belonging to Leah Croucher in with these unidentified human remains. So the items included a rucksack and personal possessions.
Okay, so this
So the detectives
okay.
have subsequently now changed this from a missing persons case into a murder investigation. There is no, as of yet, there is no formal identification of the remains in the house. So
Okay.
Thames Valley Police website, and I'm gonna have to read some of this to you because it's like a statement from the police. They have on their website an update, and they said that they are providing the public with a further update into the Leah Croucher murder investigation. And I'm going to quote this because this is exactly what it says to you, but it's quite important with the amount of info that they've got on there. It says, at the very outset of our investigation into the disappearance of Leah, we assigned this case to our most experienced and capable team of detectives, led by a senior investigating officer. This attests to our determination to find Leah. Thereafter, we immediately and thoroughly followed every reasonable line of inquiry. We committed hundreds of officers and staff to search for Leah, reviewing over 1,200 hours of CCTV, more than 4,000 house-to-house inquiries. We searched lakes, open land and woodland. We have had sustained and significant media appeals, offered several public rewards for information. But sadly, the call from the member of the public that we received on Monday was the first occasion that information was made available to enable the investigation team to provide any link between that address in Locksbeer Drive and Leah. Now, listen to this. Prior to this, in the course of visiting 4,000 properties, I can confirm that number 2 Locksbeer Drive was visited on at least 2 occasions. However, there was no response at this address. Therefore, we dropped a leaflet through the letterbox requesting a callback if the occupants of the property had any information. In addition to the house-to-house inquiries, we also visited the property to scope what CCTV was available in the area. And it goes on to say, since we were alerted to this property on Monday evening, we've established that the property is owned by someone who lives overseas and rarely visits the UK. It's now known that the owner was not in the UK at the time Leah was reported missing, and the house was unoccupied when police attended on these inquiries. Today, I am able to confirm that we have nominated a suspect in this case. His name is Neil Maxwell.
Oh. Wow.
So police had learned that during the time when Leah went missing and the owner of the property wasn't in the UK, Maxwell was the only person to have had keys to that property. He had been employed by the homeowner to carry out property maintenance at the house. And they know that
Mhm.
Maxwell had keys to the property from November 2018. So the police were quick to say that whilst Maxwell had been nominated as a suspect, it doesn't mean that he's guilty of any offence. They are trying to keep an open mind. They are trying to go through their investigation to try and gather sufficient evidence to establish what the truth may be. This may or may not implicate or exonerate Maxwell or any other people from the investigation.
Yeah.
However,
Oh.
Maxwell has previous convictions for sexual offences against females and was wanted in connection with a sexual assault in Newport Pagnell in November of 2018. Now, this sexual
Okay.
assault was reported to Bedfordshire Police on the 29th of November 2018, and the case was then transferred to Thames Valley Police the same day. So the police first attempted to arrest Maxwell in connection with the sexual assault the following day, which is the 30th of November, at an address in Milton Keynes, but he wasn't present. So during that time, it says on the website, they established that Maxwell was at an unknown location in Scotland at one stage, but further arrest attempts were continually made throughout the UK at various different addresses. So he knew he was wanted in connection with the sexual assault and was basically travelling across the UK trying to evade police. He was using false names, changing his mobile phone, changing vehicles, and he knew that he would be returning to prison if he was arrested and convicted.
So he should have been in jail.
Yeah.
When Leah was
They tried on numerous attempts to talk to him. So this brings us to who is Neil Maxwell. He would have been about 49 years old at the time of Leah's disappearance. And I found an article that was posted yesterday in the Independent on the Independent's website. This was an article written by somebody called Aisha Rimi, and this claimed that a former boss of Neil Maxwell's had alerted police to his suspicious behavior in 2009.
Oh, wow.
So this guy is a business owner. I didn't want to be named, so he's not named in the article at all. But he says that he employed Maxwell a few years ago before he had been jailed for rape in 2019. He said he had seen the probation reports from previous conviction and said that on the probation reports, experts had called him a dangerous man. And he said he told police that he's going to end up killing someone. If you're not careful, he'll end up killing someone. He is messed up in the head and he's vicious and he's violent and he's going to end up killing someone. Maxwell's former girlfriend also came forward in the article to say that she had been in a relationship with him when she was underage. So at the time, she said, in the article, it says that at the time, she was a bit of a rebel. She was young, she a bit naughty, a bit out there, breaking rules. And she she says, I quote, it says, he was very controlling and forced me to do things. He groomed me and took advantage of me. He was well known in the area for trying to pin girls down and force himself upon them. She says that everyone kept away from him, described him as a deeply sinister character. She said that it's horrible that he's done this to Leah, but to be honest, I'm not surprised in the slightest. So people knew this guy was, a real piece of work. So I wanted to understand a little bit more about what this sort of person, because I'm very surprised that even though people are they kept away from him, they describe him as a bad character. They're saying that he's evil, that he's nasty. He's known for forcing himself upon girls, and he's grooming, he's in his 20s at the time, but he's grooming kids that are teenagers. I wanted to know what kind of person we would be looking at. And I spoke to our friend, Dr. Shaham Das, who's a consultant forensic psychiatrist and actually, quite frankly, the font of all knowledge when it comes to psychiatry. And I asked him, what kind of personality may somebody like Neil Maxwell have? And this is what he told me.
So I would say that anybody that commits these serial sexual offences has a few very likely characteristics or character traits. These are things like a lack of empathy, being generally very callous and feeling entitled, specifically feeling entitled for sex. So their need for gratification in their mind trumps the well-being of their victim, and this indicates some warped moral boundaries. The other thing that stands out to me about this case is that Maxwell was quite controlling. So he obviously had this sense of wanting to dominate, and people with this kind of personality trait often have low self-esteem. So they either gain pleasure in seeing others suffer, or potentially they model their own life experiences. Either they themselves have some sort of inferiority complex, maybe they've been bullied or marginalized at some point in their lives, or they've witnessed it directly. So for example, witnessing domestic abuse between parents. The other thing that strikes me about this case is that Maxwell has previously been to prison for similar perpetrating behaviour. So he's obviously not somebody who learns from his mistakes. He seems to have a low degree of conscientiousness and possibly is a high risk taker. There is some evidence that he indulged in grooming behaviour. So you've probably heard the term grooming, but just to kind of really break down what it involves. When somebody grooms a victim, first of all, they tend to find a particular appropriate target. It's usually somebody who's quite vulnerable. Maybe they're marginalised. Maybe they don't have much support in terms of friends and family, not a lot of people looking out for them. One of the first steps is separating them from their already weak social support. So they try and divide and conquer, try and put rifts in between them and their friends and families, so they're even more isolated and tend to be less able to get any help if they need it. And then the next step is to break physical or sexual boundaries, desensitize the victims. So they might start off with very small sexualized behaviors that just increase gradually over time, and the victim usually is unaware that there's an escalation in this behavior, and then eventually it turns into actual sexual assault. So those are some of the broad behavioral traits of people that commit these kinds of offences like Maxwell. If you're interested in any of this material, you should definitely go and check out my YouTube channel, A Psych for Sore Minds. It is a smorgasbord of topics related to offending with a little sprinkling of mental illness. Hope to see you there.
So Dr. Das has given us, thank you very much, Dr. Das, he's given us a great insight into what behaviours Maxwell may have been portraying and what kind of person he was.
Mm-hmm.
So as yet, we don't actually know how much contact, and indeed if there was any contact between Maxwell and Leah.
Yeah. So this is what I don't want to say confuses me, but what kind of is like a red flag is the fact that there are these sightings of Leah around the lake where she looks upset. So is this a situation where she had been assaulted by him, left, but ended up going back? So this almost seems like there's something about this that makes me feel like there was some sort of that they were familiar with each other. Okay. Only because the where he's located on this Larkspur and the way that we are presuming she was walking to work just seems like it's out of the way. Like I know that there are multiple ways for her to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like the way that she went was not the easiest or the fastest way.
Yeah, it's a coincidence, isn't it? That obviously that's where a house that he's got keys to, she seems to have been walking near there. I mean, the thing with this is obviously knowing from what we know from this week is that he was the only person that had keys to the house, and the fact that the owner of the house lives abroad and nobody lived in the house at the time. So we know for a fact that he was the only person that had that. Now, could it have been that he was up at the lake and could have something have happened at the lake and then he's brought her back to the house because he knows that nobody is going to be in the house? Now, we know from what previous partners have said that he is quite controlling. He likes younger girls. He would have been 49 at the time that she went missing, and she was 19. So there is that big, huge age gap, isn't there? So it is not. He was in his 20s when he was grooming sort of girls' early teens.
The previous victims were all known to him, correct?
Yes.
That we know of?
Yes, yeah. And we don't know that. We don't even know if Leah was known to him, whether they had been. We don't have her mobile phone, so we don't have. We don't know if there's any. Or they haven't released if there's any correspondence between the two. But I mean, her phone was turned off at 8:30 something in the morning, but then she's seen on a phone crying later on. So could it be that she's got a phone that she talks to him on that isn't her own phone? Could it be could it be a secret relationship because of his age? Her parents wouldn't agree.
Yeah. And she was seen on the phone. That was like what, after like more than 2 hours later, right?
Between 9 and 11:15, I believe.
And she wasn't seen with anyone. None of the eyewitnesses saw her with anyone else.
No, she was on her own.
Because it really makes. I feel like something had happened. Around that 8:00, 8:30 time.
Yeah.
Then because that kind of explains why she's upset, seen, after 9 and between 9 and 11. But then does this guy, this Maxwell, is he an opportunist and he just kind of comes across her, or was he the reason that she was upset and distraught before, and she ends up going back to his place to confront him, or because it just seems like I don't know why else she would be that distraught if at around that morning.
Well, I wondered whether maybe she had met up with him, whether they knew each other. Maybe she had met up with him, and that maybe something had happened between the two of them. We know how he likes to pin girls down and force himself on them, that we've been told by his ex-girlfriend. Could it be that he tried something like that and she managed to get away? She's on the phone and she's crying. He's trying to apologize, and then she meets up with him again because he's apologizing and he's saying he's sorry.
And he's manipulating the situation.
Could that be what had happened? Now, our next port of call then would be to obviously arrest him. Now, we know that arresting him, they've had trouble arresting him because they've not been able to find him. But unfortunately, we will never be able to arrest him because Neil Maxwell committed suicide in April 2019, a few weeks after Leah disappeared.
You're kidding me.
No.
Do we know why? What caused him to commit suicide?
We don't know. Just
we know
he committed suicide.
Well, we know he was wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had a warrant for his arrest.
Previously, that's right.
Previously,
yeah.
Why would he? And he's gone that long without obviously not being worried about being caught. So then all of a sudden he ends his life.
Well, it seems very strange that he ends his life a few weeks after Leah has disappeared. Could it be that he finally took it too far? She ends up dying and he can't handle what he's done, and that's what happens. It could be. Now, a significant amount of inquiries were then made nationally to locate Maxwell, and there were 18 attempts to arrest him from the first off when she went missing.
18?
The police had tried so many times to try and locate him, and he was like I said earlier, he was found up in Scotland, and then he was found somewhere else, and then he was found somewhere else, but they never actually got to locate him and get there in time. So in April 2019, they published a wanted appeal regarding Maxwell in connection with this sexual assault in Newport Pagnell. This was also during their investigation to find Leah, because there was no link at the time between Maxwell and Leah until this Monday just gone, when the police were called about this property in Lockspear Drive. Then they put the two and two together and realised that he had keys to this property. So on the website, on the Thames Valley Police website, it said that if Maxwell were alive today, we'd be seeking his arrest in connection with this investigation so that he could be interviewed under caution to provide his account. Unfortunately, that now can't happen. So what can we do as podcasters, as listeners, to help this investigation? So usually in cases like this, I would have tried to contact Leah's family, to talk to them about Leah, to try and get more information, to see if there's anything we could do to help, to give you guys key points or key areas that she was found in, places like that. Anything that we could help, that we could push this case and help her just kind of get to some more ears. And even sometimes it's not even that a person has seen something or has heard something. It could be that you reach out, somebody listening to this in America or another country could think, okay, well, why have the police tried this? What about this? So it's really good to try and get as much information as you can out to the public without jeopardizing the case. So on this particular case, I thought that Leah's parents are dealing with more than enough at the moment, and that it wouldn't be ethical to reach out to them. It wouldn't help the situation any, and they're dealing with enough at the moment. Police are appealing to anyone who had any contact with Maxwell between November 2018 and his death in April 2019, or anyone who's got any information at all that might help their inquiry, to contact Thames Valley Police. And that's where maybe our listeners can help. So if you are listening to this, if you have any information at all, please contact the police by visiting their website. This is Thames Valley Police. You can call 101 and you can quote Operation Innsbruck. If you don't wish to speak directly with the police, of course, you can send it to us and we will pass it on anonymously. You can also call Crime Stoppers anonymously as well. And the number for that is 0800 555 111. So Crime Stoppers is 0800 555 111. So if you're looking at this case on the internet, you've Googled Leah's name and this podcast has come up and you've been listening and you know something, please don't keep it to yourself, because her family have gone through enough. They've spent years wondering where she is. They've now found that her belongings have been found in a loft. The only person that had keys to that house is somebody who has an awful past. And so you can slowly put two and two together. And unfortunately, it's not looking very well. Leah's or the remains haven't been formally identified as Leah's, but you know, that's what we're thinking at the moment. And Leah's family need the public's help. It's been really tough for them not knowing what's happened to her. The investigation has taken this huge turn, but there's no chance to interrogate this prime suspect. The family have been robbed of finding out what happened to their daughter and why. So the best thing they can do now, police are going to be relying on people to come forward with information to help them. And the best thing we can do as listeners, as public, as human beings, is to do anything we can to try and help this family, because they need to heal now. And Leah deserves justice. So if you know anything at all, please just do the right thing and give the police that information.
Sad case.
It's a really, really sad case. And I remember when it first hit our news that Leah had gone missing. And I remember thinking, God, she's only 19. She's really young, just on her way to work. You know, her life's just starting, really. And then now this week, hearing about this, and everything is slowly starting to slot into place at what could have happened. And I really, really hope that somebody must know something. There must be more information on this guy and his whereabouts at that time. There must be.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe, she was there the whole time.
I know.
3 years.
I know.
Up to her body's in a loft.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this property, because the first thing I thought was, well, isn't anybody living in it? I wasn't sure whether people have been living in that house. I'm not sure if people are living in it now and they've discovered something in the loft that, because I don't know if it's the same in America, but here, if you rent a property, a lot of the time you're not allowed access to the loft space. A lot of the time rental companies will lock the loft. I worked for a rental company, which we managed houses that we would act on behalf of the landlord. And a lot of the time, sometimes landlords would store their property in the loft, and they would rent the house out because they lived abroad or worked abroad. And so they would store their own belongings in the loft, and then they would lock the loft up. Other times, people were worried about people growing marijuana up there. They were worried about people falling through the ceilings. So they just locked the loft as an extra. I've lived in rental properties where you're not allowed access to the loft. And that's just how it is. So I wonder if perhaps this property was rented out. The owner still lives abroad. Was it property rented out, or did they sell the property and the new people have moved in and gone up into the loft and found this? Because obviously this is a new lead in this investigation. So they've obviously discovered something and called the police straight away.
Insane.
It is absolutely awful. Really awful. And she didn't deserve that at all.
Oh, no.
Absolutely not.
This Maxwell, he's a coward. He is. Absolute coward.
And now he's taken his own life, so he's never going to have to answer to his action. I mean, that's the thing. We don't know. I've got to say, we don't know 100% that he's got anything to do with it. But
I'm 98% sure he had something to do with it.
It would be such a coincidence if he had absolutely nothing to do with it. Going with his previous convictions, going with his previous character, and this, then, you know, the chances are he's got something to do with it. But we have to say that at the moment, he's, you know, until he's proved guilty, at the moment, it's just a suspicion. But
I have this suspicion that they knew each other. I don't know on what level, but I just have this feeling that they had known each other.
It bothered me about the night before that she went out and was unaccounted for an hour. That bothered me a little bit because I wondered, well, she said that she was going out to meet her friends, yet none of her friends met her that the parents know of. So she was unaccounted for an hour or so the night before. And then she comes home, it's 7:15, she goes to bed. That's quite early. Could it be that they were in contact with each other then? Could it be because, I mean, normally if my 19-year-old comes home and tells me that her new boyfriend, like, let's meet my new boyfriend, and the guy's nearly 50, I'd be kicking some ass, which I'm sure her parents would have done too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure her parents would have been pleased with that. So if that's the case, there's reason number one for keeping this relationship quiet. And this guy's a master manipulator. He knows how to groom women. He knows how to, play them. He knows how to do this kind of thing. She's an impressionable 19-year-old girl. Possibly, could this be her first, proper relationship? Possibly. So it's exciting. It's new. This guy's really nice. He's older. He's got money. He can treat her to things. Maybe that's what happened.
Maybe.
But I watched the news this week and watched her family laying their flowers outside the house. And I just thought, oh God, my heart just breaks, absolutely breaks watching them and their little note. I always think it's really intrusive when the media do that, when they take pictures of people's little notes that they leave on flowers for people.
Mm-hmm.
I feel uncomfortable reading that and knowing what it says, because I feel like that's a message between the parent and that child, and it's really upsetting. It's awful. It's awful. The pictures that I saw in the paper, the little notes that her grandparents have left, her sisters left, her mum and dad have left, and it's just the family are broken. They're just absolutely broken, all because this guy can't control himself.
So sad.
So that is this week's case, and I will keep you updated. I'll keep you updated next week with any updates that we get here. Obviously, it's in our news all the time, and the police are now actively investigating again. So I will keep you up to date with anything that happens this week.
Well, thank you for that.
I almost feel like I don't want to do a dumb criminal this week because I just don't feel like laughing, It's just one of those really sad cases that it's happening right now, and I just feel this is why I do the old cases. See?
Yeah.
This is why.
But these current cases need to be talked about too.
They do, and I know that you guys aren't hearing about it over there. So obviously, and some people here will have seen the name in the newspaper but not had chance to read the story. And I just think it's quite an important story to be told.
It is, absolutely.
So this is the part of the show where we try and lighten the mood slightly. If you don't normally listen, this is a segment in our show that we call Dumb Criminal. And we always get told off if we don't do it. So we're going to do a dumb criminal to leave you with a smile on your face at the end of the show.
Hey, Captain Stupid Poopy Pants, use a dummy.
So I feel like we've had stories like this before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where someone is wanted for crime or crimes, and they have a feature or a tattoo that makes them easily identifiable.
Okay, yeah.
Well, this criminal has probably taken it to the extreme.
Right.
So a man was wanted he had outstanding warrants on allegations of traffic, property, and domestic related offenses. Okay.
Okay.
Now he went viral down in Australia because of his distinctive face tattoos. Okay, which ended up leading to his arrest. Okay. So the man, his name was James Sutton. He's 24 years old.
No relation.
He was able to be no relation to Colin. He was quickly captured because of the attention he got on social media. And a lot of people made comments stating that he shouldn't be hard to find thanks to a tattoo that was on his face. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to send you a picture.
And I'll describe.
And I want you
said tattoo.
Okay. Tell me if you'd be able to if you know this guy.
Okay, so I'm going to put this on our socials. So this guy his whole face is tattooed except for like the area where your moustache would be, and his eyelids, and for the word beast in huge, huge letters across his forehead. That is quite a distinctive tattoo. I think I would probably recognize him again. That's horrendous.
Yeah. So some people on social media compared this tattoo or these tattoos to a Sharpie drawing.
It does.
Like,
yeah.
It looks like someone just took Sharpie to his face.
It does. It really does.
Yes.
That is a tattoo and a half. Absolutely. Why? Like, why would you do that to yourself?
Now, what makes it worse is when police release his pictures, saying we're seeking his arrest, he seemingly taunted the police by posting a updated Facebook profile picture.
What?
With basically his upper face and a mask covering his lower face. So obviously, now that his lower face is covered, police would never know who he is.
No, of course not. No, absolutely. There's no describing that mug, is there? Absolutely not.
No, there's not.
Look at the state of him.
You shouldn't be surprised that he was arrested by police and is now in custody.
He is absolutely 100% a dummy. I will put this picture on our social media so you will know. You can go and check it out and see, and you will understand exactly what we're talking about. That's crazy.
Oh my God.
That is crazy.
Look, if you are going to commit crimes, don't make it easy for people to recognize you.
Yeah, just don't do that to your face to start with. I mean, that's just crazy. Even if you're not going to do crimes, like that's not going to get you a job. That's not going to help you in life, is it?
No. Can you imagine him walking into McDonald's trying to get a job with that face tattoo?
Yeah, he's never going to get a suit and tie job, is he? Realistically,
no
one is going to employ him with beast written across his forehead.
What could you do with that much ink on your face? What could you do? I mean, I guess you could work for like I don't know, traveling circus.
I just wonder what
traveling fair or something.
What on earth made him think to do that? He's had to have been high or drunk.
Oh yeah,
he had to have been, because I don't know anyone that would think that that's a good idea. It's crazy. That's an awful idea. Oh, thank you for that. That's great. When you see it, you'll laugh and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. I want to say a massive, massive thank you to Dr. Shaham Das. Check out his podcast. It's not a podcast. It's a YouTube channel. Sorry. So check out his YouTube channel. He is a lovely guy and he is so knowledgeable in his field. He's an expert witness. He's a clinical psychiatrist. He's absolutely brilliant and a really thoroughly nice guy too. And his YouTube channel is brilliant. He covers literally everything you can think of, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, you'll definitely find his channel really interesting.
And he has an amazing book
for coming on the show. He does. His book is brilliant, really good.
It's called In Two Minds by Dr. Shaham.
Yeah, and it's his story, isn't it, of how he became a psychiatrist and how he got to where he was, and some of the cases that he's worked on that are really memorable to him. And he's a really lovely, I think he's a sweetheart of true crime. You couldn't meet a nicer guy. He's lovely, really nice guy. So definitely check out his channel. And thanks very much to him for coming on and giving us his expert advice on Maxwell. So we will be back next week with Morgan's episode. So for now, thank you for joining us and be nice.
And bye.